a huge thanks to Nicky. Nicky, it is such a privilege and honor to have you, on my live this evening in South Africa. It is such a privilege and honor, and I do not take this for granted. Wale is joining from US. Thank you. Just for those who are joining, Nikki and I met. We had our we met last year, if I'm not mistaken. We had a TEDx event, a TEDx talk event, and that is where we met. And since then, I've did a lot of research on her work. She's doing amazing, guys. You just need to check her out. You need to check her. You need to check her
Thank
out.
you.
Yeah, you need to check her out. I'll be reading your profile very shortly, but um, I really, really encourage everybody who is joining this session. And I'm also going to be leaving this, when all of this is over, I will leave the whole recording on my timeline so people can always come back and watch the session. Thanks so much, Nobantu, from joining from Johannesburg. So Nikki is a published author, and here's the thing, Nikki, one of my favorite teacher is Vusit and the, and there was a time he said that one of the ways of leaving legacy in life is to write a book. He said one of the way for the world to remember you that you are here is to leave a legacy of your wisdom, to leave a legacy of your intelligence, to leave a legacy of of what you know. And anytime I see people who are extend themselves, in writing something, I have a very strong affinity to drift towards them, to move towards them, because I know one, they have something worth sharing, and two, they have something worth learning from. So, Nikki, I really, really, I'm so encouraged by your works. Number one, I'm so very inspired by what you do. Like I said, I've done a little bit of background, research on you, and I am very, very inspired. So please keep on keeping on. You changing
Thank
lives,
you.
you're living legacy, and you're doing amazing, amazing, amazing work. So thank you, thank you. So let me just quickly read a few of Nikki's bio here. So Nikki is an international keynote speaker, a leading thinker. I love that. John Maxwell said, um, um, thinking is not as easy as people think it is. And yeah,
Yeah,
and consequently, most people think that they think, but in actuality, they don't.
yeah,
Um,
I agree.
um, so, Nikki is an international keynote speaker. She is a leading thinker on driving innovation and digital transformation through
Mhm.
personal disruption. And disruption is the key word there. And we're going to be talking more extensively on that this evening, disruption. She is an inspiration voice for those who yearn to recreate themselves and discover new opportunities in a fast changing world. She is a published author of the book Disrupt Yourself or Be Disrupted. Guys, you need to get that book. It's available on Amazon, but she'll be talking about that later, after the show, after the talk. Nikki, so today we are speaking on the subject of embracing change in a digital disruptive world. I personally strongly believe that change is inevitable. I mean, in the face of innovation, in the face of pandemic COVID-19, change is inevitable. And if there is one thing that COVID-19 has teach us or as um, or something we can learn from the pandemic is that the pandemic has exposes the redundancy of many skills. I mean, some restaurant now, you go there and you only have to scan the menu just with your phone. The need for waiter is becoming less and less relevant, and even the real estate agent. Today you can view a property virtually. You don't need to go there physically. So we realize that the pandemic has been a major amplifier, or it has really bring to the forefront um, um, why certain skills are no longer needed, or why certain skills are becoming redundant in the grand scheme of things. In fact, according to the World Economic Forum, it is said that by 2025, almost 85 million jobs is going to be lost,
Yeah.
um, as a result of technology, adoption, and all of that. And I strongly believe that our position as human beings is not to argue, is not to grumble, is not to complain, but rather to rise to the occasion and either reskill ourselves or upskill ourselves. I love the word of Jonathan Winters. He said, if you cannot change the direction of the wind, you adjust your sail. If you cannot change, where the wind is blowing, you don't complain, you adjust yourself. So in the face of disruption, change is a necessity. It's not even an option, it's a necessity. And I remember companies like, Nokia. I remember companies like Blockbuster. I remember companies like MySpace, Kodak, Xerox, BlackBerry. You know, uh, in their time, these companies were a King Kong. They were the best companies of their time. But they were so loyal to what was working then at the expense of change in their industry. I mean, I still remember MySpace. I used to have an account with MySpace. I remember Blockbuster. But these were big in their time. They were so
Yeah.
huge in their time, but they
Yeah.
were so loyal to what was working then at the expense of the disruption or change in their industry. And consequently, they are far gone. We don't see them anymore. So I strongly believe that change is not something we fight. Change is not something we complain about. Change is not something we argue for. Change is something we prepare ourselves for and we embrace. I personally believe that any idea that is working now has a shelf life. Any idea that is working now, there is a shelf life to that idea. And I guess our role as human beings is to have a foresight to be able to see ahead of time and position ourselves, to embrace the change in our industry and not be disrupted, in your own world. Um, so yeah, today, so today we are going to be, speaking about what are the early signs of, that an industry, what are the early signs of disruption, or what are the early signs we can see from an industry that is on the verge of disruption. We are going to talking about what are the practical things people can do, in navigating disruption. We are going to be talking about what are the careers, what are the jobs that are at a risk of losing relevance, in the face of this COVID-19 pandemic. And personally, you'll be sharing your story and how disruption or being disrupted is such a very passionate subject for you, and probably there's something we can all learn, or pick from your story. So, guys, for everybody who is joining us, once again, thank you so much. Wherever you're joining from, please kindly type, um, um, just put a message in the comment box just to say, I'm joining from US, I'm joining from South Africa, I'm joining from Johannesburg. Just for me to have an overview of, demographics insights of, where and where our participants, our, viewers are joining from. So, Nikki, let's get into it. Firstly, let me ask, why is the subject of disruption a very passionate subject for you? I mean, to the point of writing a book about it. I mean, it is one thing. I mean, it is
Yeah.
one thing to love. It is one thing to love something so much.
Yeah.
It is another thing entirely to write a book about it. I mean, that's a different level of. So why is disruption or being disrupted a very important subject for you?
Wow. Thank you so much, Daniel. Confirm if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can, loud and clear.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this. Meeting you at a TEDx event, it was like, wow, like your talk completely blew my socks off. Like, so I'm so glad that we're able to stay connected and we're having this, conversation right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to answer your question, if I were to really answer that question, we will be here for days. So I'm just going to I'm just going to give a quick one on that. So sometimes you chose the path in which you want to take in life, and sometimes your path chooses you, And so for me, it was the latter case where I did not even imagine, like, if, for example, like 5 years ago, if anyone had told me that I could write a book, I would literally laugh at them. Like, what? Like, what are you talking about? So my path chose me, as I can say, my purpose chose me because it wasn't something I got up one morning and planned. I'm like, okay, this is how it's going to be. And I put it down and I put it on, what is it called? Vision board. Like some people do.
Yeah.
I didn't do any of that. This thing fell on my lap and I was like, okay, what do I do with this? Back in 2016, I was still very much in the corporate world. And one day, I went to work and my boss called me in for a meeting. I thought it was a meeting to catch up with things that have been happening because he wasn't around. But by the end of that meeting, I was jobless. I was told, hey, the company is restructuring and we have to let you go. So literally, I was like, okay, this is strange. I had no words to even respond to that type of an information because I did not see it coming. My boss used to tell me plans like 5 years ahead, what we would do and where he saw us going. So I did not see it coming. And so for the months and probably a year or so that followed, I was not myself, right? So I was asking a lot of questions as to how can this thing happen to me? Like I actually had a couple of people in mind I thought deserved to be retrenched, not me. I felt like I think I'm too young to be retrenched. I thought retrenchment happens to old people, like maybe when you're in your 40s, in your 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
I mean, like you've worked for a long time. You should be retrenched, not someone who is still having their leg on the first ladder, like on the first step of the corporate ladder, and then you kick me down. Like, how do I rise back up? So there was a lot of emotions going through me. There was anger, there was frustration, there was, just despair, as I could put it. As a single mom with 2 kids, I was like, okay, how do I pick up the pieces from here? How do I survive? How do I feed the kids? And so one thing led to another, and my pain and my frustration and my anger eventually became questions. I was like, okay, but what is driving retrenchment at the rate in which it's driving retrenchment? Because after I got retrenched, a strange thing started happening to me. Like when you buy a new car, you start seeing that car everywhere. If you never maybe paid attention to that particular car. And for example, like with my smartwatch, when I had it, I never noticed it. But now when I go everywhere, I see people wearing smartwatches. I'm like, where have you been all along? So for me, after getting retrenched, now when I turn on the TV already, I will hear about people getting retrenched, companies retrenching people. So that type of news started jumping on me. And so that was where the questions began. I was like, okay, so this thing didn't just happen to me. Apparently, lots and lots of companies are letting go people. And so the questions were, what is driving this retrenchment? I wanted to find the answers just to satisfy my curiosity. That was it. So I threw myself on the internet and I, Google. I type a question on Google, literally, what drives retrenchment? Why do so many companies let go so many people? For example, it could be like 2,000 people in the space of 2 or 3 years or 5 years, and they continue thriving and they continue doing well. So these questions I wanted answers to, just to satisfy my curiosity. Okay, now I guess this is why I got retrenched. But when I got into that research, it was like a rabbit hole with no end. For the first time, words like artificial intelligence started jumping on me. I had no clue what that was. The fourth industrial revolution started jumping on me. I had no clue what that was. Like robotics, automation, I didn't know any of those things. But the more clueless I was, the more I wanted to know more, right? So I was like, okay, if there was a first if there's a fourth industrial revolution, apparently there was a first, which I've never paid attention to any of it, whether first, second, or what, never. The only technology I knew was to use my phone and make calls, or you use my laptop and send emails and work. That was the only technology I knew. That was the only technology I worked with. I asked no questions. I didn't ask anything from anybody. I just focused on my work until retrenchment happened. And now I'm on the internet and I'm seeing things like the fourth industrial revolution. I'm like, what is this? So I have no background in tech. Like some people, when they hear about me, they're thinking, okay, probably she graduated from tech. Or I'm like, I have no background in technology. I'm not an academician by any stretch of imagination. I don't have a degree. So this was just my curiosity. I threw on the internet and I became very fascinated by the topic of the fourth industrial revolution and how new technologies are changing and disrupting the world of work and our lives in general. I was here minding my business and someone disrupted my life. So I felt like, okay, I think I need to put this message on a bigger platform to let people know, okay, this is what happened to me. And if you don't do something about it, it's probably going to happen to you because there is no neutral ground. The world is changing. So I started writing my findings on Facebook. And from there, it evolved into me blogging about it. I started blogging, just writing articles about it. And at some point, I thought, I think someone should write a book about this. And that's someone I didn't think would be me, you know. I did not imagine that someone would be me. I just felt like, I think people are so fascinated by this. Someone should write a book about this. And then people would be asking me questions as if I had the answers. But it comforted me. It gave me comfort realizing that I was not the only clueless person, how much technology is changing the world. Like, okay, even people I respected, people I thought were in the IT industry now asking me questions. Oh, this is good. So I just went in and I was like, okay, who is going to write this book? And I look left, I look right. I'm not seeing anyone talking about it. Like, it's not like now a lot of people are talking about it. Like, you know, back in 2017, 2018, the 4IR thing was like still very new. And, you know, so I thought, okay, who's going to write this book? Definitely not me. You know, I thought like you have to be very smart to write a book. And immediately I came up with like 1,000 reasons why I don't qualify to write a book. I was like, no, it cannot be me. And I kept arguing with myself. But it became like when an idea has taken hold of you, if you don't do it, you become miserable. So at one point I surrendered. I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to write the book. And so it just evolved from those social media posts, from blog articles into a book. Like I'm saying, when people are surprised, some of my friends, they're surprised that I wrote a book. I'm like, I'm more surprised than all of you guys that I wrote a book. No one is more surprised about this than me. Like, I'm literally still pinching myself like, Nicky, you did this. So that is really how it happened. That is the quick story about why I'm on this path and why I'm passionate about it, because I truly believe that there is no neutral ground and we need to be having these conversations just to create that atmosphere or that platform where people can start asking themselves hard questions. You know, maybe you're a student in school, ask yourself what you're currently studying. By the time you graduate, will this still be relevant? Those are hard questions, but you have to face them. The industry in which you are, ask yourself how, you know, what is the future of this industry? Where is this industry going? Ask yourself, do you need to jump ship? Do you need to completely transition before the ship crash? Ask yourself these questions. The position you're currently occupying at work, ask yourself, can I be replaced by a machine? Ask yourself those questions. I was in admin, you know, I was working as a PA. So right now, most apps, like, executives can literally handle their own PA activities, like just by setting up themselves with apps and all of that. So ask yourself these difficult questions. So that is really why I am passionate about this, so that people can start thinking into the future and making decisions that will future-proof them and benefit their future, rather than sitting and crossing your fingers and just hoping, okay, not me. No, it could be you. It happened to me. It could be you. You could be retrenched. Then what happens? Yeah.
Wow, Nikki, I am so inspired by your story and I am so touched by it at the same time. And I pick up two things from what you just shared now. Number one, you see, when people lose their job, normally the natural response is that, you know, people become negative, people become cynical about life, people become, you know, depressed and all of that. and they complain about life, they complain about things, but that is not the narrative I'm taking from you. You also breaking the glass
No, I
ceiling.
was. All of those things I experienced. Forgive me. Like maybe it came out in the wrong way. Maybe because I'm not in that dark place now. Depression was there, despair, anxiety,
Oh wow.
anything you could imagine. I felt it. But you cannot sit in that pain forever. There has to be a time
Yeah.
where you have to say, okay, from here, where to? Like losing a job
Mm,
is not a joke. Let's face it. Like,
yeah, that's
especially when you didn't
true.
even anticipate it can happen to you.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
that's
felt
so true.
all of those emotions. I think the difference is that at some point I had to dig myself
You
out
pick
of
yourself up.
that bottom,
Yeah.
and dig myself out of it. I was like, no, I have to do something about it. Even though the
Mm,
thing I was doing about it, I didn't know this is the path in which you would put me. I was like, okay, let me research. And then when I started the research, writing became now like an escape. That's why I started blogging about it. I had no idea it would turn into a
wow.
book. But the fact that I was writing about my findings gave me a bit of hope and a bit of life. Like, oh, I'm doing something to inspire someone out there, even though I was miserable. But the fact that I could inspire someone out there gave me some life and some hope. So it just evolved from there. So I felt all of those emotions. I am not a superhuman. No, not at all.
But I must still give you the credit though, for picking yourself
I
back up
understand though.
and for
Thank you. Mm.
yeah, it's amazing. So I guess not I guess now I know why you are so passionate about this subject and why we should listen to you about the topic. So let me get to one of the first and I think most important question I have here with me. So many people are locked up in a dead end job, but they are not aware of it yet. It's so very easy to go through life on autopilot and not be sensitive to the changes around us. I remember the story of somebody made this illustration. One Harvard professor he spoke about a boiling frog. He said when you throw a frog in a very hot water, like on hot water, the frog is going to jump out like because the water is hot, right? But he said when you take a frog and throw it into a cold water and gradually increase the temperature little by little, the frog is not going to be aware of the changes of the temperature changes in the water until it's too late and the frog dies. Now, why do I share that? I share that because so many people are not aware of the changes in their environment, especially from a career point of view. They are not aware of maybe they are aware, or maybe they are just, you know, optimistic or hopeful that, I'm not going to be affected, I'm cool, I'm fine. But if there are signs out there that an industry is on the verge of disruption, what would that signs be for anybody that will be, watching this, that is watching this now and I'll be watching this maybe later? And if an industry is at the verge of being disrupted, if an industry is at the verge of losing relevance in the marketplace, what are the early signs that we can all see to make us adjust? What are the early signs that an industry is on the verge of disruption?
I think for me, the very first sign would be lack of innovation.
Wow.
If within an industry there is no change, there is no innovation, they are relying on old technologies, old things as it has been, so shall it be till the end. Like that's like the main thing. If your industry is not being innovative and you don't see new things happening, new innovations coming in, new ideas coming in, creativity, lack of creativity, people are basically like things you have been maybe processes or business models you've adopted for the past 5 or 10 years are still the same you're doing today, then definitely something will kick you out of the market sooner than later. So that's like one main sign for me, lack of innovation, because continuous innovation is what keeps an industry going, keeps what keeps a
Wow.
market, going. And so another big sign for me would be inconvenience. Whatever industry you are, if your clients are becoming inconvenienced of the services or products you're offering, like if there's a lot of inconvenience and things like that along the way, your industry is ripe for disruption, because consumers today want convenience. They want things at the touch of a button. They want to be able to touch a button and an Uber is outside, the taxi is outside to get them. They want to be able to touch a button and food is outside for ready, cooked for delivery. Not groceries for them to start cooking. Like they literally want ready to eat.
Yeah.
So those are conveniences that consumers are looking for nowadays. And so if these conveniences don't exist within your industry or within your organization, then you are ripe for disruption, because consumers cannot stay long in within an industry or within a company that has a lot of inconveniences along the way. For example, if there are processes where perhaps people can complete them online and you require them to come to your premises, that is an inconvenience for a lot of people, and they will not do that. They will rather go online and look for organizations or look for industries where they can complete certain processes online without necessarily having to make a trip to your physical location wherever you are based. So those are inconveniences that needs to be eliminated for an industry that wants to stay relevant, and or for a company that wants to stay relevant. You know, is maybe your website mobile friendly? I mean, how fast does it load on mobile? Those are like, they look like, excuse me, they look like, things that you could overlook, but not in this age and time in which we are living. People want to get on your website and things and things load faster. They want to be able to find information quicker, and things like that. When they get to your website, they need to be able to find basic information without necessarily having to call someone. Calling someone is already an inconvenience. Then imagine if you have to deal with a call center agent, So they want to be able to do a lot of things on their own. That is the independence that consumers, us nowadays, we want that independence. We don't want to be on the phone with someone and maybe they'll even be nasty over the phone to us and things like that. We don't want that. We want to be able to get on a website and get the information, the basic information we want, and complete certain processes online. So the fact that your industry still has a lot of inconveniences for consumers is a big sign that you are ready for disruption. If you lack innovation, you are ready for disruption and things like that. So I think those two would be like the big ones for me.
Great. And let me permit the use of word double click on the first one, the lack of innovation. What advice would you give for an employee then, who find himself or herself in an environment where, there is no creativity, there is no innovation, and it is not within their power, it is not within there is no structure in the organization that drives or that fosters innovation. What would you advise anyone to do in that regard? Should they look for a job somewhere else? Should they upskill, reskill themselves? For somebody in such an environment, where creativity is stifled, it's not encouraged. What advice will you give them, or what can they do?
I think yeah, great question. I think you kind of answered the question as you were asking. Look for another job is one option. Having the conversation with your bosses or whoever you respond to, is another option. Upskilling yourself is another option. So all of those are options you can do. But the one thing you cannot absolutely do is just to sit and wish and hope that things turn out all right without you being a participant in that. So you have to do something about it. And so you could upskill yourself and try to look outside where you are currently, or you could come up with ideas, be the disruptor within that organization or within that industry. Be creative, come up with ideas. If you keep meeting up with red tape and the doors are being slapped at you, perhaps it's an indication that it's time for you to leave and maybe flourish with your ideas somewhere else. But like I'm saying, one thing you cannot afford to do is to do nothing.
Wow, thanks so much, Nicky. Now let's talk about practical things people can do. I think you've mentioned it already, but if there is more other points you want to add to it, like let's take for example the COVID-19. One of the surprising things for me, when the COVID-19 starts, is how quickly the government were able to decide what is essential and what is not essential and what is not essential. And for the first time in my life, it dawned on me that almost 80% of what we consider to be essential work, essential skills, just in the face of pandemic, we
Yeah.
regard them as not essential anymore. So speak to
Hmm.
us about people who find themselves in that, experience where COVID-19 has been a major disruption, and all their life, life has been good until March 2020, when Mr. COVID visited us, in South Africa. What practical things can people
Absolutely.
do to navigate disruption, so that they won't get disrupted and lose relevance?
Yeah. The biggest point for me would be continuous learning. You
Continuous
know,
learning.
there was a time where people went to school, they graduated, they took the certificate, they closed the books, they closed their minds, and they went on with life. But that cannot happen at this point. At this
Mm.
point is continuous learning. One
Wow.
of my favorite quotes, I think it's by Alvin Toffler. He
Yeah.
said, the
Oh, I
illiterate
love
of the
it.
21st century
Come
will
on.
not be those who cannot read and write, because if it were those who cannot read and write, I'll probably fall under that. But the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Because this is very important for you to stay relevant. I guess your question was about staying relevant, right? So if you don't have the ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn, you will find yourself obsolete. And when we look at this, the problem is not even in learning. I mean, people go back to school all the time. People
Yeah.
further their education all the time. So learning is not the problem. Where the problem is in unlearning, because people are so
Wow.
used to old things, old ideas, old mindsets, old habits that they have practiced over the years, and they cannot imagine themselves giving that up. Like, but this thing brought me such and such success. How do you ask me now to let it go? But this business model has worked for me for the past 15 years. How can you ask me to let go of it now? That is where the problem is. Ask that same person to go
Wow.
back to school and further their education and get a master's or a PhD. They will do that in the blink of an eye. But ask them to give up an
Mm.
idea, to give up a habit. That is where the fight is. It is in unlearning.
Wow.
So unlearning is the new learning if you want to stay relevant. Don't just focus on learning, piling up ideas on you, but focus on what is it that no longer serve you? What are the ideas that are no
Wow.
longer relevant? What are the habits that are
Mm.
no longer relevant? Unlearn those
Yeah.
habits, unlearn those ideas, and you will definitely stay relevant in the world in which you are living. Otherwise, you'll be
Wow.
obsolete even while you are living, because that is the danger. Things that we were taught 10 to 20 years ago are obsolete. Just 5 years ago, even, are obsolete. And then imagine you not willing to unlearn those things that you learned 5 years ago, or those things that you learned 10 years ago, or those business models that you've adopted 10 years ago. If you're not willing to unlearn them, then you will find yourself obsolete, even though you're alive. Obsolete literally mean you're
Wow.
becoming useless. So those are things that the most important thing for anyone who wants to stay relevant in the time in which we are living is to unlearn those ideas. As someone put on the comments, be the disruptor. And it's not about disrupting even other people, it's about disrupting yourself. That is why the title of my book, if you look at it, is Disrupt Yourself or Be Disrupted. Because here is the thing, us as humans, we know how to disrupt other people. We know
Yeah.
how to disrupt the government. I mean, we have great ideas that can work with our bosses and all of that. But
Mm.
when it comes to us to look within and ask ourselves, what needs to be disrupted within me? What is it
Yeah.
about my mindset that needs to be disrupted? What is it about my
Yeah.
business that needs to be disrupted? That is where the problem is. We don't want to disrupt ourselves, but we have a strategy on how to disrupt others and how to disrupt
Yeah.
everyone else. But when it comes to us, it's a problem. So being the disruptor is really about you. It's not even about the market. Because if the market usually sometimes you find this disruption happening on its own. Without you being like the major player, things happen like technology. It keeps changing. And so if you are not
Yeah.
disrupting yourself to align with where the world is going, if you are not
Mm.
disrupting your mindset to align with the change happening in the world, that is where you find yourself obsolete and irrelevant. So the focus is on you. not entirely on your industry or on your organization, even though you should keep an eye on that. But you, as a person, should be finding ways to disrupt yourself, to disrupt ideas that are no longer serving you. If there is a degree you had from the most prestigious university, you know it's no longer serving you, stop hanging it on your wall. Get rid of it and go do a short course. 3 months course may serve you better than that degree that you have hanging on your wall that is no longer relevant. You see what I mean? But because people knew, for example, I used to use accounting as an example, and sometimes people are like, Nicky, what do you have against accountant? But hear me, like, back in the day, being an accountant was the thing. And now there are softwares that can do accounting better than humans. Then imagine someone who studied accounting 10 years ago. They haven't even upskilled within that industry, but they have this degree in accounting that they had 10 years ago. And that is what they're using to intimidate people with. Do you know I have a degree in accounting? It's irrelevant, for crying out loud. It's irrelevant. It cannot do anything with anyone. And so the thing is, be your own disruptor. Disrupt your own self. Think about how can you let go of these things that are holding you. Whatever degree, as long as it's not helping you, it doesn't make any sense. And then some people will be feeling too big, like me, go and do a short course in 3 months. That is irrelevant. No, that's not irrelevant. That's actually what will get you a job, a 3 month short course, rather than a 4-year degree that maybe by the time, even if you start now, by the time you're graduating, it might not be relevant. So you rather stick on this learning path where you're doing 3-month short courses and keeping yourself relevant. That is, that is one way of staying relevant in the world in which you are living now. Upskilling is one of them, which all boils down to one of this. When we talk about upskilling, the only thing registering into people's mind is, oh, I'm going to further my education. Okay, I'm going to get a second degree. Okay, let me go get my master's. Oh, okay, let me go get my PhD. No, think outside of that box, because that's the box that we've buried ourselves inside for so long. Think outside of that box, because upskilling doesn't necessarily mean that once you now have the right skill, there will be a job waiting for you. That is where there is a clash, because technology is taking over to the point where jobs that used to be done by humans are now being done by machines. So we are going to find ourselves in a position where it is not about lack of skills anymore. It's about lack of jobs, even though people have skills in abundance. So another way to think outside the box and disrupt yourself is to start asking yourself, okay, what other means can I make an income other than having a job?
Yeah, that's true.
How else do I make a living other than having a job? Those are questions most people don't want to ask themselves. They just believe we were told, go to school, get the certificate, get a job. Okay, this is how it is. And this is the part I'm going to stick on. I have that degree. And even though there's evidence around you, your elder brother, your elder sister, your cousins, and all of this, everyone within the family have all these degrees and no one is having a job, but you believe that no, your case will be different. I mean, come on, we need to start thinking outside that box of a job and start asking ourselves, what else can I do to make a living? And perhaps not just make a living for myself, but create jobs for people within my community. And that's where innovative thinking comes in. You could be sitting on a business idea that will employ other people within your family or within your community, but you're afraid to step out of that because you are like, no, I'm waiting for a job. I have a degree. I'm qualified. The government is supposed. No, those are ideas that we need to disrupt them. Yes, that could have happened maybe in the 8 days of our parents, where going to school was guaranteed that you will have a job. But nowadays, going to school, the one thing you're guaranteed is that you will come out with student debts. That's the only guarantee. As far as the job is concerned, not really.
Yeah, Nicky, I used to say this to, whenever I go for a public a speaking engagement or something of sort, that what brought you this far or what take you this far may not take you any farther. Because what qualify you for today may not qualify you for tomorrow, because the requirements to meet the demand of tomorrow is changing, and
Absolutely.
it is onus on us to upskill ourselves, to reskill ourselves, and to be ahead of the creative curve in whatever industry we belong to. And speaking of reskilling and upskilling or education in general, uh, for the sake of those who are watching and those that will watch later, short courses most of them are even free online. Let me give you a
Mm-hmm.
few websites. Some can even write it down. If anybody's watching, the McKinsey Academy. There is the McKinsey Academy. There is a particular program they run. It's called the Forward Program. It's free. It's free. Just go on Google, check McKinsey, McKinsey, the McKinsey Academy. Um, that is one. You can go on Coursera.org. You have all the prestigious universities. You can even take course from Harvard, from Pennsylvania. All of some of these courses are free. I remember back in my early years, I took my public speaking course from the University of Washington. Um, Short courses. I take emotional. So many courses online from prestigious universities. Udemy is another one. Google also have the digital course, edx.org. All of these websites offer free courses. Like, the quote you gave the other time, the illiteracy of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. If what you are learning right now is not serving you, it is blind optimism to hope that things will change in the face of disruption. I mean, Nokia as a company is a case study. Is a case study. They were so loyal to what was working then.
Yeah.
They embraced what was working at the expense of change. And guess what? Today it's just for the memory. Blockbuster, they had the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to buy Netflix at the early
Yeah.
stage, but no,
Yeah.
but now today, in 2010, Blockbuster declared bankruptcy, but today, Netflix market capitalization is around 260 billion US dollars. As at the
Mm.
time, Blockbuster, had the opportunity to buy Netflix, it was around 50 million US dollars then, but they were so
Yeah.
loyal to what was working then.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we cannot hold anybody responsible except ourselves, to prepare and to learn and to stay relevant, in the face of disruption. Another question I want to ask Nikki is speaking about disruption and staying relevant, what specific industries right now do you think are at the verge or are at the risk of losing relevance? That if people working in that industry do not do something quick and drastic, they stand a better chance of either losing their job or either rendered redundant. So if there are one, two, three, or four, five industry or career paths at the moment that you know that if something is not done very quickly, people in this industry are at risk of losing their livelihood. What industries are those industries?
I think the first on the list will be retail. The retail industry. The retail industry, with self-service machines, it's only a matter of time before it infiltrates, even Africa as a continent. And so,
Mm,
and then you can then start to imagine how many cashiers will be laid off
wow.
when the
Mm,
time comes where we get into a supermarket, we pick our items and we walk to this machine by ourselves and we scan them and we pay. Like right now, we already paying with our cards. There was a time where
yeah.
you go pick these things and you actually have to hand your cards over your bank card to the cashier to key in or whatever. All you needed to do was put in your PIN. But now the cashiers don't even touch your bank card anymore. And that is the system slowly training them to hands off, even though they don't even realize it. But and they are making us customers comfortable to be able to do these things by ourselves. The first time I was handing over my card to a cashier and they said, put it on, I first looked at him like, what's going on? And it felt different for me to be doing that. You have to put my card in by myself and punch in those numbers, and because that's not how it used to be. But now it's something I'm very comfortable with. So it is one step, as much as that's is training the cashiers, letting them know subconsciously one day you will not be sitting here. They are making us consumers comfortable to do these things by ourselves. Because if we're able to put our cards into the machines, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I lost you for a few seconds, but I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Probably there's something with my earbuds. Can you hear me?
But I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Okay. All right. So yeah, like I was saying, retail is one of those, and it's the thing is has to do with the entire hospitality industry, which is like hotels and even the food industry, restaurants. You mentioned waiters earlier. You know, there are restaurants or in the Western world that are fully run by robots as we speak. So,
Wow.
and so those are things that it's only a matter of time before it gets to Africa. And so people aspiring to get within industries like that should really think very carefully, because probably in 5 to 10 years from now, things would there will be a drastic change within those industries. We will not be seeing what we are seeing right now. I believe, you know, things could be different, but this is what I see in the future happening. Retail, hospitality industry, and healthcare in general. You know, with a lot of technology happening now and artificial intelligence, you can imagine with even the devices that we put on our bodies that can regulate our systems and heart rate. And there's a lot that I can know from what is going on with me just from my smartwatch, you know, and without necessarily having to go to the doctor. And then imagine that there are people who still are thinking that there's a future in nursing and things like that, because even doctors are at risk, nurses are at risk, and things like that. So these are, I don't think there's any industry that is really entirely safe because the more I speak about it, excuse me, I just realized that almost all industries are going to be disrupted at some point by artificial intelligence. Look at banking. When was the last time you went to the bank and queue? Exactly.
Yeah.
We get up in the morning, we switch on our smartphones or our laptops, we do our banking transactions, and we go about our day. But there was a time you couldn't do that. And these things are only going to be streamlined, and it gets even more and more easier as time goes on. So for bank tellers, not really. Bankers themselves, artificial intelligence is having a major impact within the banking system. And we are not even talking about cryptocurrencies and what they will do within that industry, right? So that's an entire conversation on its own. And so these are like the moment I'm mentioning, I'm just seeing like nearly every industry will be touched by artificial intelligence. Farming used to be done by humans. That's agriculture, right? So when you look even within the agriculture sector, with the drones and big machines and all of that, there are machines that plant seed now, no longer humans. There are machines that dig up the earth, the ground, and all of that, no longer humans. There are machines for harvesting, no longer humans. There are machines checking up the temperature of the leaves of the tomatoes and all of that, no longer humans. So every industry is being it's being disrupted right in front of our eyes. So no one is really safe. No industry is really safe. No job is really safe. I guess at some point we just have to like, okay, what next? Let's see what's happened next. So the only thing that is safe is you designing your own thing, creating your own thing without necessarily having to depend entirely on an industry. You know, be your own industry where you can control the change that is happening within your life rather than entirely waiting on a system, because things can change just like that. And when it comes to businesses, of course, business owners will go for what makes more business sense to them, which are machines, robots, and things like that. Dealing with humans, you know, one harvesting machine can harvest. For example, within the agriculture, a harvesting machine can harvest maybe what 50 farm workers could not accomplish within a week. You know, it could do it maybe in 24 hours, so probably 48 hours. That's what a harvesting machine can do. So humans really, we don't stand a chance to really compete with machines in that way. And the artificial intelligence built into these machines know how to handle a fruit. Like I saw a video online where this thing it's so careful with how it's picking the tomatoes, like not to squash it. You ask yourself, oh my God, like this looks like a person trying to be careful not to squash this tomato, but it's actually a robot. You know, so these robotic hands, they get in and they do these things. So there's really no industry that will not be disrupted. Look at what is happening within the education, with online education happening, how many teachers are needed, and things like that. And so every industry is being disrupted. Everyone is being industry. If you're aspiring to be a teacher, ask yourself in the next 10 years, how many people are really going to be sitting in a classroom? That's the reality. Yeah. How many people are really going to be sitting in the classroom? Because at some point, even the buildings will become vacant.
Yeah. That's so true.
Yeah, so that is the world in which we are living now. Every industry is going to be touched in one way or the other. Some may be eliminated entirely. So, but every industry is definitely going to be touched by artificial intelligence and other new technologies that are coming up.
Wow. Nicky, sure. I think this is a wake-up call for everybody, everybody to think in the long term, and to ask themselves, what is the relevance of what I'm doing right now to the future of to the adoption of technology and to the influx of new technological innovation. Yes, you're right. I don't think anybody is actually completely safe, so to say. We just need to, be very creative and futuristic as we plot our career path or our career life. And I love your illustration on education. I think the idea of sitting down in a class, getting a lecture at some point will become irrelevant, will become redundant, will become useless. And personally, I love education. I'm very, very big on academics. It is a wake-up call for me personally to, it's like Daniel, though I don't teach, like it's not like I do teaching for a living, but I'm so very passionate about education. I guess the idea is to ask myself, what is the future of education? Hi, brother. My brother is here.
Hi.
So the idea is just that we should be futuristic in our approach and just try as much as possible, to be innovative and creative, to chart our career life. All right, Nicky, let me ask if there are certain specific skills that you think are needed for the future of work. You've mentioned quite a lot of skills that are redundant, irrelevant, if there are specific skills that that these skills are the future of work, what skills would that be? Like specific skills that everybody must embrace, to stay relevant, to stay relevant in their career, in their work. What skills would those skills be, Nicky?
Absolutely. Great question. Learn how to join a Zoom meeting.
I love that.
Anyway, that's a joke, but there is something people should think about it. Like, the struggle has been real since 2020 up till now in joining Zoom meetings and these online things like what you and I are doing here. We had no idea this would be such a challenge. And so I think that some people can actually dedicate a course towards this of how to join a Zoom meeting. And, we've had things like, can you hear me? Am I live? Can you see me? And all of that. So you realize that there's a skill gap in joining Zoom meetings and all of these things. But anyway, back to being serious. Curiosity, I think for me, is one of the big skills, and which is something I think I would actually hand that over to you, because the way you spoke about curiosity was like, oh my God. But people have to really be curious and creative. I think, you spoke about curiosity and creativity where at the time I met you at a TED event, So being curious, just the ability to wonder and question things. Like, if you remember at the early when we started on, I said the thing that took me out of the dark place in which I was curiosity. When I asked the question, what is driving retrenchment? At the rate in which it's driving retrenchment, why did I get retrenched? Why do organizations keep doing well when they retrench 5,000 employees or 2,000 employees? How do these organizations stay afloat? I asked that question and it threw me on a path now that I never could have envisioned. So curiosity, being curious and asking hard questions, you don't know what you can discover down the road or down the path. You know, there's a quote, I don't remember exactly the author of that quote, but it says, hardly do you ever stumble on something sitting down. You stumble on something when you're walking, when you take a step, when you're curious, when you're asking questions and you're doing things. That's when you can stumble on something. I stumble on my purpose, so to say. I stumble on a book, so to say. I stumble on speaking, so to say. But if I had just sat down and I was like, okay, I'll go retrench. Please, everyone, feel sorry for me. That would have just been it, you know. But I had to ask the question as to why did it get to this point where I was no longer needed? What replaced me? How is my boss coping without me? I need to know. It's like when a relationship ends, you want to know how is this person coping? Like, who is the new thing? So you went on this, how do you call it? Investigative. As people can do relationships, you should do that with life. Because usually relationships and people become investigators overnight, you know, detectives overnight. They want to know why the other person is surviving, if the other person is missing them, if the other person is crying over them. Find that out about life. Be that curious with your future. Be that curious with your industry. Be that curious with your job. And, you know, so apparently it's curiosity is a big deal for me. Just the ability to wonder and ask and question things. Don't accept whatever has been given you, maybe from childhood up to now, as the truth or as the only truth. Question that. Be curious about that. Why does this thing have to be the way it is? Ask questions. And when you ask questions, you don't know what path it will lead you to. So curiosity is one of those. And creativity, I think it works together with being curious, but creativity is also one of the big skills that people should not sleep on. And now when we're looking at the skills that are relevant now and the skills that will be relevant in the future, these are not skills where you go and learn in school. There's no course in any school called curiosity. There's no course in any school called creativity, from what I understand. You know, so these are skills that it's back again to you and you being disruptive and you disrupting yourself, as we spoke earlier. It's about you disrupting yourself. Because how does your creativity come to the front? It's when you keep trying things.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't sit and like, okay, I'm going to learn about creativity. No, pick up a project. Force yourself. As you stay on it, your creative juices will start coming up to the surface, forcing yourself to experience things, you know, as you start asking those questions. So curiosity is one of those big skills that we actually need for the future. And another big one is the ability to solve problems in real time. Again, it's not about certificates. The ability to solve problems in real time. If what you're bringing to the table is just a certificate, you are at a disadvantage. Because the world in which we are living now, it's about the ability to solve problems in real time. What problems are you facing in your own life? What problems are you facing within your organization? Like we spoke earlier on, you were talking about an organization that is not being disruptive enough. Okay, that is a problem for you to solve if you're within an organization like that. Not just sitting and beating your chest, you know, I'm the most educated here, I have a PhD, I have a master's degree, but meanwhile the organization is literally sinking and you cannot save it. You know, at least you cannot try to do something about that. So the ability to solve problem is a huge skill for anyone to have, and it ties with critical thinking, you know, because when you're thinking critically, you're able to solve problems in real time. So those for me are like skills of the future. One would be emotional intelligence. If we were to get into that, we'll probably spend an entire evening just talking about emotional intelligence alone. So these are skills that people overlooked in the past, but they can no longer be overlooked now. The ability to be human, which ties with your emotional intelligence and things like that. Because in a world filled with robots, your ability to be human counts highly. Your ability to be able to put yourself in somebody's shoes and feel what they're feeling and imagine what they're going through and respond to that, whatever they're going through. It's a huge skill that we all need to learn to cultivate, which is empathy, basically, you know. So those are really the skills of the future.
And I think, thanks so much, Nicky. And I think that is one of the gap that technology cannot bridge in terms of emotions, empathy. I don't know if robots can show empathy if we are there yet. I don't think.
They'll probably get there. What is coming is scary. Artificial intelligence is scary. There are robots that can blink, they can make facial expressions, they can. So we will get there at some point. I hope not in my lifetime, though, because it's scary. I nearly swear. I was like, I hope not in my lifetime. But artificially, if there's anything you should be scared of, it's artificial intelligence.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's quite a paradox because in some ways they are helping us. But in a more bigger and more broader way, I think human need to outgrow. Maybe outgrow is not the right word. To outgrow the relevance, or to outgrow the value, to increase the value they are bringing to the table. In terms of innovation, in terms of idea. And I strongly agree with the idea of curiosity and creativity. That is very, very key. That I know I'm very big on those two subjects. That is very, very key. The key to creativity is curiosity, the power of questioning, the ability to critically examine a thing and ask yourself, how can this thing be better? How can we make it better? How can we make it different? The ability to question a thought, the ability to question an existing idea and look for the imperfection in those ideas. What is lacking in this idea? What is lacking in this? Yes, this is good, but how can we make it better? The ability. I remember, in that my TEDx talk speech, as a child, I grew up very, very curious. I question almost everything, That it has an advantage and it has a disadvantage. It has a disadvantage. But I mean, I question almost. I remember asking my parents that if the heart is moving so fast, I mean, why are we not falling down? I mean,
that's interesting. I used to say, outside of what I do, if there's anything I probably would do, well, it would probably be to be an FBI agent. Questioning things and just undercover detecting. Yeah, that's me. That's me.
But the problem is as we grow into adulthood, we just become acceptive of the answer society presents to us, and that is when dogma sets in. We don't question things anymore. We accept things as the way they are, and consequently, life becomes so very stale, life becomes very predictable, and life becomes so very redundant. Nicky, I know if I allow you are an oasis of wisdom. There is so much. there is so much you could share. But if there is something you also want to share apart from, I think I've covered primarily some of the all of the questions I want to ask you. But if there are other thoughts or other nuggets or ideas or wisdom that I may not have asked, but you want to share, please feel free to do that, because I don't want to keep you. I know it's Friday evening. You want to be with the family. You want to be with you. So please,
thank you.
There is something you want to add here.
I think I would just mention one last thing about the power of networking, which is a skill on its own. If we have to go in the list of skills, like I mentioned, the skills that are relevant today are not what we used to have in the past. In the past, you just needed to appear with your certificate with your name on it. But now there are certain skills that for you to stay relevant and future-proof yourself, you need to have. And I think networking is powerful. I speak for it because I know how much I've benefited from networking with people and interacting with people. Look at us here. When we met, it was like 5 months ago. I don't know. I can't remember exactly. But and then we connected and then we stayed in touch. Literally, that is how I get to meet people, and I stay in touch. Sometimes I don't, but sometimes I do. But nonetheless, the power to network with people is very important. You cannot rely only on your friends, your immediate family, or your schoolmates and things like that. Open your mind to be able to meet people outside of your industry, outside of your culture, outside of your country, because that is how we learn. Like there's learning that happens in school, and there's learning that happens by interacting with people. And I think for me, the things you learn from people as you interact with them, if you are open-minded, they're actually sometimes more valuable than things you sit in the classroom and learn. So when you have that ability to network with people, you learn a lot, and not just learn a lot. There are opportunities that comes through people if you are able to expand your network. You know, as Christian, like you and I, we understand that God is not going to come down from heaven to leave a banana at our door. You know, God is going to hand that banana through someone, you know, and if you don't have the ability to network, and not just network, but value relationships, like take care of relationship. Don't be a nasty person, you know what I mean? And respect people, not based on their job titles or their net worth or any of those things, but just be a decent human being, and you attract a lot of things to yourself by opening up your mind, opening up your heart, and networking with people. There are people that know only two people, you know, maybe their girlfriend or their wife or their husband and their teacher or something, and that's it. They don't know anyone else, or their colleague at work. But now that everyone is working from home, it's just you. You know what I mean? And so it's very important to expand your network. And the internet has made it so easy for us to meet people online, you know, interact with people online, whatever social media platform you are. I encourage people to become visible. Don't be under a rock, you know, create content, engage with people's content out there. That is how you get to share your ideas. There are people that have reached out to me from a comment I left on somebody's post. I'm like, hey, Nikki, we noticed this comment and you commented something, and I was like, that was so relevant, and I had to reach out. And you know, and sometimes I'll end up speaking at an event because of this person. So that's literally the power of digital networking. And there are invites I've gotten, especially on LinkedIn. For me, I'm very big on LinkedIn, and I'm a big advocate for being active on LinkedIn, you know, because I know the power, the opportunities have brought for me, where people have reached out to me. Oh, we've been following you and we think your content is relevant, or we see your work. Can you be part of this thing we're doing? Can you speak at this event? Just because I've put myself out there. Then imagine if I was not networking and I was not going out, those opportunities would not come. So one way for you to stay relevant and open more opportunities for yourself is to network. I think we can close with that. Network, and be visible online. Be visible online. I remember having a conversation with a group of business people, and I asked them, if I were to Google your name right now, what will come up?
Wow.
And I usually ask everyone, like, if I were to Google your name right now, what will come up? If nothing comes up, then you are being your digital footprints. Something is lacking. You need to become more active, especially if you are in business. You know, especially if you're in business. For those that sit in an office, they can get away with that. But if you are on your own and you are in business, and I get on Google and I Google your name and nothing comes up, something is seriously wrong somewhere. So yeah. So that is the importance of it. Have a digital presence, network with people online, and open your mind to the world globally. You don't just have to network with people within your culture, within your people from your old school and things like that. Open your mind to the world, because of technology. Like we spoke a lot about the negative aspects of technology, right? But when we look at the positive aspects of it, they are quite huge. And one of it is that the world has become a global village. It's a small place. You can talk to people at any time. You can meet people that you would never have imagined interacting with these people in online forums and things like that, and groups online. So it's the advantages are there, and so we shouldn't just look at it from the negative aspect of losing jobs and things like that. The advantages that technologies have brought to us are quite incredible, you know, and so take advantage, leverage on technology for your own benefit, especially if you're in business. Yeah, that is probably a conversation for another day. Let me not get deep into that about having footprints, digital footprints.
You know, Nikki, and speaking of, I'm going to ask you to share a little bit about your book and where people can get it. But just before you share that, speaking about networking and relationship, you know, after the TEDx talk we have, I think it was in September or October last year or so. I have met more people within that circle that that has been that has been very, very instrumental to my speaking career. And can I even tell you that after my video was published on the YouTube, on the TEDx YouTube page, the YouTube homepage, I sent video to so many speakers bureau.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and from there I've been getting, speaking engagement. In fact, I just finished one last week.
Amazing. Amazing.
I just finished one last week. So, and that speaks to the power of community, because if I look back at how the old TEDx thing come to be, it's all about networking and having an idea what because networking has its own role. You also have something worth saying that people want to listen to. So yeah, networking is key. I cannot overly emphasize that. Nicky, I really want to appreciate you. I want to say thank you so much for your wisdom, for your insight. Please tell us where we can get your book. If people want to sign, get a signing like that.
Yeah. You can get a signed copy. You can order on my website, nickyverd.africa. When you order from my website, then I will be the one to deliver to you, so I can sign it. But then you can get it at exclusive bookstores nationwide, all over South Africa. But then I will not be able to sign it if you're getting from exclusive books, And also people who are not in South Africa can get it from Amazon. You can get it either the ebook or the hard copy as well. Both of them are on Amazon. So those are the places you can get the book.
Wow. Nicky, have you thought of doing something like a boot camp for writers, aspiring writers? As a writer yourself, you've overcome a challenge.
No, that's not something I thought about it. Really, I have not thought about it. If you listen to my story carefully, I'm telling you, I'm still getting used to the idea that I actually wrote a book. So
you get used to it already. Yeah.
So maybe I need to get used to it. I'll probably write the next one and the next one, then I'll be like, oh, I can actually do this thing. Maybe I can teach other people now. So, but for now, I'm literally still getting used to the idea that I wrote a book. So, yeah, let me bask in this glory first.
All right. Thank you so much, Nicky. I really appreciate your time. Thank you, and God bless. Let's stay in touch, and I'll reach out to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Thanks for having me. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Let me just end this here. I show you an idea.